Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing signs your ex still cares. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing signs your ex still cares. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, it's likely that you will be looking for signs that your ex still cares. Although there is no guaranteed way of knowing for certain what somebody is thinking, in today's podcast I'll be discussing 3 likely signs that your ex still cares. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is watching or asking. So this covers 2 bases in point number 1 as a likely reason, a likely sign that your ex still cares, and that is that either A, they are watching your social media, or B, they are asking about you. So let's break these down in turn. So A, watching your social media. Now what does this mean exactly? Well, it could mean that they watch your story. You may be on a platform where if they watch your story, you are notified and you know they have viewed your story. If somebody is watching your story, it shows they are interested. Okay, people don't do things for no reason. Okay, there is the possibility that there could be an accidental viewing of something maybe once, but if this is somewhat of a regular occurrence, you can conclude that they are thinking about you, and therefore I would suggest that they on some level still care. If somebody doesn't care, they don't view, they don't watch, they don't show interest. So if somebody's watching your stories each week, that is a sign. Now, there are other things on social media as well. Maybe your ex has interacted with a post of yours and they've just given it a like or something such as that, and you think, well, that's just a breadcrumb. But in my opinion, this shows interest. Once again, they don't have to do this. There are many people's posts, there are many people's stories they could be viewing. Why are they viewing their exes? I would suggest it's because they still care. Now, it's very, very important that you don't live your life checking upon this every single day. We don't know why for certain somebody has viewed a story, and we don't know why for certain they may stop viewing your stories. So if your ex was to view your story a few weeks in a row and then suddenly stops, I don't want you panicking and worrying that they have now decided that they never want to speak with you again, or they've met somebody else, etc., etc. There are various potential possibilities as for why this has happened. Maybe they've got busier with work, for instance. That's just one possible example. In general, I do say to people, never check your ex's social media. Don't check their online usage. It will never help you. At best, it will confuse you, and at worst, it will break your heart again. And I do maintain those thoughts. But if your ex is constantly interacting with your social media in one way, shape or another, that is somewhat of a sign that they still care. Like I say, if they stop, it doesn't necessarily mean that they no longer care. It just shows that their life circumstances have changed somewhat. It doesn't mean they won't view it again, but it might mean that they are living their life a little bit differently, even though they still possibly care. So the point that I'm trying to get across in point number 1A is that although you shouldn't be living your life checking your ex's social media and internet usage, if they are viewing your stories, it is somewhat of a sign. If they are interacting with your online presence in whatever way, this is some sort of a sign that they still care. Now, what about part B of point number 1? When I said asking, this is where you find out that your ex is asking about you. Maybe you're friends of friends or family or somebody who knows that you and your ex have now split up, and they find out and they're asked about you by your ex. Now, you might hear about this and think, well, if they want to get back together, then why don't they reach out to me? If they care, then why aren't they asking more important, serious questions other than possibly the basic and mundane that maybe they did? Again, I would say, let's just look at the action. The action is that they've taken the time to ask somebody how you're doing, or whatever question it may be that they did actually ask. If they are asking about you, I believe they still care. Now, both of these things in point number one do suggest that although they may care, they aren't yet at the point where they want to reconnect. You need to be regrowing enough romantic emotional attraction in your ex's mind for them to want to reach out to you directly. If they don't reach out to you directly, then that is not really showing that they're ready to reconnect at this stage, but it does show that there is a level of interest and care still there and quite possibly growing. If you want more support about learning how to increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, the signs to look out for, strategies that you can implement to really improve the chances of romantic emotional attraction growing in your ex's mind, and if and when they do reach out, you communicate effectively so that you can get that meet, and therefore you stand an opportunity to grow a brand new relationship. If you want support through any type a breakup scenario, you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you speak one-on-one, I become your teammate, and we take this journey together. More details on my audio coaching service can be found on my website, www.dateme.tips. So now let's get into point number two and the second point of today's podcast, about signs your ex still cares. And point number two is unnecessary contact. So this is a progression from point number one. If you receive contact from your ex, this is generally speaking a good sign. This is generally speaking a sign that they care. But what you're specifically looking for is whether it was necessary contact or unnecessary contact. Necessary contact could be something such as them texting you to say that they need to get their work laptop that they have left at your house. That is necessary contact. That is something they have to do for their job, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to reconnect, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they are caring about you or thinking about you. But what I would say is that if you receive unnecessary contact, then that is a huge sign that your ex still cares. Similar to point number one, but even more so, someone will not waste their time contacting someone that they are not interested in, that they're not thinking about, and that they don't care for. We all have plentiful possibilities of people we could text, of things that we could do. You don't have to do this with your ex. If you do this with your ex for a non-necessary reason, this is likely because they still care. And even if you feel that once again it's very short, but it's a breadcrumb, but it's something which is irrelevant, I always suggest that you can grow the largest tree from the smallest acorn. And therefore, I would honestly say to you, it's very, very important that you focus on the action. The action is them reaching out to you. The action is them spending time sending you non-necessary, unnecessary contact, the context of which matters very little at this stage. I would strongly suggest that you respond to whatever they ask you or whatever they actually type and see how things can be grown. You can grow this. Now, can I guarantee you'll get your ex back? No. Can I guarantee that they don't just want platonic friendship with you? No, not at this stage. But what I can say is that you are further along than people who aren't hearing from their ex. So this is a step in the right direction. It's a huge step. Because once you enter the communication stage, you can start to decipher what is on your ex's mind and how you can take this forward. Like I said earlier, if you want to speak one-on-one and get support during communication, contact me, check out my website, dateme.tips. So when we consider whether contact is necessary or non-necessary, respond, be as polite and positive as you can. But if it's definitely something that we didn't have to send, this is a sign that your ex still cares. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast, about signs your ex still cares. And point number 3 is romantic relationships are powerful. So even if there are no obvious signs that your ex still cares, it's very likely that your ex still does care for you to some degree. And this is because romantic relationships are powerful. Any romantic relationship you've ever had is special. You will never forget it. They will never forget it. You and they are in a different realm, you might say, to other people that they know in a non-romantic way. People who share intimacy and romance together are on a different plane, you might say, to people who haven't. And therefore, your romantic relationship was special. Just because a breakup has taken place, it doesn't mean that your ex doesn't think about you. It doesn't mean that your ex doesn't care about you. It doesn't mean you can't one day get back together. Before you and your ex ever met, you would never have thought the feelings which could be developed between you, and then they did. Now you are once again thinking that this can't happen because you've broken up. But what you should learn is that feelings change, feelings can evolve, feelings can develop. So you didn't know your ex, then you did know your ex, then you got together, now you've broken up. What you can see is this is an evolution. Things are always moving. And therefore, the situation you and your ex are in right now doesn't have to mean it's the situation you will be in 2 months, 2 years, 20 years' time. Things change, things evolve. And with the power of romantic relationships, there is every possibility that your ex still cares, even if they don't seem to show any obvious signs. I speak with many of my audio coaching clients who say to me, I'm not seeing the signs. And then out of nowhere, they hear from their ex. And once they get speaking and chatting and develop their relationship further, it starts to transpire that their ex was thinking about them regularly, even though they hadn't reached out, even though they hadn't showed signs. So I'm not trying to give you false hope. Not everyone will get their ex back. Not everyone will hear from their ex again. But what I can say is that there is every possibility that your ex is thinking about you, that does care for you in some way, even if there are no obvious signs which are really flashing those red lights around your mind, thinking, hey, look, there are the signs. My ex still cares. Even if they aren't doing these things, it doesn't mean they don't care. It doesn't mean they can't contact you. It doesn't mean you can't get back together. Now, it's so important that you live your life to the full, pushing forward, improving every day and making new connections. Don't stand still, don't clock watch, and don't wait for your ex because it might never happen. But always remember that if you live your life in a positive way, if you improve every single day, if you become attractive to new people, you're also becoming more attractive to your ex as well. And there is every chance that you could re-attract them by regrowing romantic emotional attraction in their mind. And if and when they contact you and you move through the communication stage, it could be up to you what happens in the future rather than them. Because what we often see is a dumpee power switch between which person really wants to reconnect and which person now isn't so sure. I've done many podcasts on that type of subject. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and let me know in the YouTube comments whereabouts on your journey you are right now. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.